What's up everyone? Alrighty, so today's video is about the Daphne Blake family tree. Now, because Daphne is probably the fashionista and the most danger-prone member of the gang other than Scooby and Shaggy, who constantly run into monsters all the time, most of the fault not their own. It does seem to be the monsters like to chase Scooby and Shaggy. But yeah, we're gonna get into Miss Blake's amazing family, because her family really is amazing. It's actually a lot bigger than what you see on screen. The only problem is that like good 1/4 of her family just does not have images, so I just gotta mention them. Now, I'll explain what each of the colors of the lines mean. Blue is for siblings, white is marriage, green is children, orange is cousins, and red is any theories I have. As you see, I do have probably a couple theories on here. Well, it looks like I only have one, but I should have had another one. I just didn't change it because I thought green was for the best. So the first ancestor we're gonna meet, because we always run with the oldest members of the family to the youngest, which the youngest being Daphne, of course, or if Daphne had a younger sister, which she doesn't. She all has older sisters. But let's start with the ancestors. Amelia Ruth Blake, better known as the pirate hunter Ginger Fuzz. Now, calm down there, Zorro. She ain't taking your job. She wore a fake mustache and bandana with a giant hat to disguise herself, and we met her in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, The Curse of the Half-Beard's Booty. Now, talking about her having a fake mustache kind of reminded me of Zorro from One Piece having that fake mustache, and that just all cracked me. But let's get into the Wild West version of Daphne, because every single member, Velma and Fred, both have had their own version of this whole cowgirl, cowboy detective group, and this one is named Cardamom, and Cardamom is actually a quadruplet, but she does not like to be called Cardamom. She likes to be called Carrie. Now, Carrie does look very similar to Daphne. The only thing is that she is feisty, always spoiling for a fight, hated to be likened to her elder sister Cinnamon. Now, we met Carrie just like the others in The Good, the Bad, and the Scooby, but let's get into the juicy bit about her sister Cinnamon. Now, Cinnamon was the older sister to Carrie, of course, but unlike teaming with a gang, she had a partner named Nighthawk, and not the one from Marvel, but instead the one from DC Comics. And in fact, Nighthawk was the reincarnation of Prince Kofu, better known as Hawkman, and Cinnamon is actually the reincarnation of Shiara, otherwise known as Hawk Girl. So that's kind of wicked that Daphne is related to a prominent DC hero. It would be cool if later on we get to see something come out of it, like another DC Scooby-Doo crossover maybe, where Batman makes a reference about it in his files, or something with the massive bat computer. Maybe Velma's going through it for whatever reason, she comes across it and she goes, "Oh, Daphne, did you know this?" You know, that'd be really cool to see. They also have two other sisters named Garlic and Paprika, so I guess at that time when quadruplets love to run in this family, I'm gonna assume. And we don't get to see any images of them. We don't really get to know anything about them. They're just mentioned and listed as being sisters to the two. So let's get into the grandparents. We only have one grandparent that we see. We don't have the other one. Great Grandpa Blake, we don't know his first name, but you know, he's only mentioned in a pup named Scooby-Doo during the episode with the ghost of Chef Pierre Goulash. And so yeah, we don't really get to know anything about him. We don't get to see anything about him. It just really sucks. So the next grandparent we do get a mention of, but we don't get to see, is actually in Be Cool, and it is Great Grandma Mimi Blake. Now, we do know that she once funded a dig site where a 35,000-year-old pennant was discovered, and she gifted it to Daphne for her 10th birthday. But Daphne's mother donated the pendant to the prehistoric exhibition at the Ice Hotel that the Blake family co-owned, which, looking through this whole thing, I'm just gonna say this: the Blake families run a lot of hotels and resorts, and that's kind of interesting. So that might be how they own their fortunes, is, you know, they just own hotels or co-own hotels. Amazing. Now, we're gonna get into the aunts and uncles that we know are married, so we're kind of gonna go, I'm gonna swap between aunt, uncle, just to give you a heads up. So Aunt Maggie is the first one we get to see. She is the co-owner of the Sandy Cove Hotel with her husband Murray, and we meet her in the Scooby-Doo Mystery, Scooby-Doo and the Sunken Shit. Same with Uncle Murray. He runs the Sandy Cove Hotel. Ironically enough, he looks like Sheriff Amos Tupper from Murder, She Wrote, just with a mustache, but we also see him in Scooby-Doo and the Sunken Shit comic. Now, Aunt Helen is next, and she is kind of wholesome to me. She kind of reminds me a little bit of my grandma, but she is an older woman, and her husband Randolph was a hunter. She is stated to hate dusting the old trophies her husband brought home, and we meet her in Scooby-Doo Big Game Hunter. Now, Randolph L. Blake, also known as Great Uncle Randolph. He was a former big game hunter, but later he gave up on hunting and became a conservationist, but was unwilling to give up his old trophy collection. We see him and Aunt Helen together, of course, in the Scooby-Doo Big Game Hunter comic. Now, Aunt Molly, I will say I'm sorry for the grainy image. I tried to look her up, but literally only Scoobipedia has the image, and it's fine there, but it's grainy in the other, so I don't know what happened. It's just really weird. Now, Aunt Molly is actually interesting, and it might be for a reason that you might actually already assume after looking at her kind of blurrily close up, is that she looks remarkably like Velma, except of course for the orange hair and the green turtleneck shirt instead of a sweater. We do not know much about what she does, but she did throw a St. Patrick's Day party in the Scooby-Doo Shamrock Scare. Now, next is Uncle Sean. I don't know, his picture is of course a little bit better, but still weird. Uncle Sean is actually funny. He gets mistaken for a leprechaun when Daphne and her Aunt Molly go last minute shopping for the party. I won't spoil it, but we see him in Scooby-Doo and the Shamrock Scare. I about said Shamrock Share. Kind of, well, that does have something to do with the comic, but you know. Next is Aunt Betty and Uncle Arthur. Now, we don't have really much information on either of them, but we do get to meet them in the comic Turkey Terror at 2,000 feet. And let's not forget about the two that I'm actually really interested in. And I know this might seem weird, but I'm actually interested in just because of how they look and how the relationship is. So Aunt Europa is awesome name. First off, I love the unique name. She's the owner of a new age resort. She wears India style clothing, and she tends to pay less attention to people around her. In the comic, she gets Fred's name wrong a lot. I don't know how many times she gets his name wrong, or all the times, like what she calls him instead, but I bet it is kind of annoying because they said in Scoobipedia they iterated that, so it's just like, oh, okay. Uncle Dan seems a little squirrely. He looks like one of those old hippies you would see in the old images of Woodstock. He is married to Europa. He gifted her a giant Buddha statue to dance for her, but it went a little awry, and we also see him in Scooby-Doo Karmic Chaos. I also want to let you guys know, I did click on that to try to find the picture of the front cover of the book, but unfortunately I couldn't, and while I was looking through there, I saw that there was a little bit of trivia, and it said that Daphne stated in the comic that she also, the local sheriff and judge of the Karmic Chaos comic, are her uncles. We do not know their names, we do not get to see them, but it's like, okay, that's kind of cool, because when I was doing research, they never popped up. So interesting. Now let's get into the aunts, and we're gonna start with the first one, Olivia Dervey. She's the maternal aunt, and she, I believe, is one of the first family members that I saw as a kid watching the Scooby-Doo show, because like when I was trying to catch up with everything. She's the maternal aunt, and she was the victim of her own physician, Dr. B.B. Bell, turning into a cat creature. We get to help the gang solve the mystery and make a beeline away from that beeline. And I believe, Scooby-Doo, where are you? Now, Gia, which by the way is a wonderful name. I love the names that are varied. Gia is a fashion magazine owner, the name being Fabulous. That's the fashion magazine's name, Fabulous. There isn't much else on her, but I will mention she is in the Italian comics The Secret of the Boogeyman. Now, Aunt Esther is actually a farmer. I almost went Wisconsin there, holy crap. Which is interesting for me because most of the family is fashion or looks branded, but it is nice to see that Daphne's family is actually very diverse and not just rich, preppy type stuff. We meet her in Scooby-Doo, The Maze of Maze. Now, Aunt Mildred, this one is actually funny for me. Aunt Mildred here seems to be worried about her niece. Like, we don't get to see an image of her, but Aunt Mildred is really worried about her niece and the whole talking dog thing, so she decides to admit Daphne into a quote-unquote rest home, in which Daphne is not having it at all. They wrote she was tearing with at the experience. After all is said and done, I am really hoping that Daphne cut ties with Aunt Mildred, but we do not get to see an image of her, but she's mentioned in Scooby in the Booby Hatch. Now, finally, Aunt Sibby, and I absolutely love this aunt. The name is great. It's already like a 10 out of 10 for me. She owns a bakery, and just looking at her, she looks like a jolly person. I can really imagine her singing pop tunes, putting icing on a wedding cake, and we get to meet her in Scooby-Doo, The Case of the Sweet Tooth Spectre. I just love Aunt Sibby. That's a great name. She's just so awesome. All right, Matt Blake. Matt Blake is a rancher and Daphne's paternal uncle and owner of the Lazy S Ranch. He is shown to be a nice and calm person unless you mess with his or anyone else's cattle. We see him in the Scooby-Doo show A Bum Steer for Scooby episode. Now, next up is Sandy Blake. Sandy Blake is basically a carbon copy of his voice actor, actually Adam West, which, to be honest, I did not even realize until doing research for this video. He is the owner of the Grand Sandy Resort, and also, what is up? Looking back, what is up with this family naming hotels and resorts after Sandy? Like, are they obsessed with Sandy Cheeks? I mean the squirrel, degenerates. We meet him in Scooby-Doo and the Beach Beastie, or yeah, Beastie. Charlie Blake. Now, we know nothing about Uncle Charlie other than the fact that he gave the gang free passes to the new oceanarium that was opening in the book Scooby-Doo Calculator book. Next up is Uncle John Maxwell. John is a movie director, and he takes a lot of stride in his work to make good movies. I remember clearly that he is the first member of Daphne that I saw on TV, and then the episode we see him is in Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Never Ape and Ape Man. Now, Uncle Ted. Unfortunately, we do not get to see Uncle Ted, but he is mentioned in the Legend of the Phantosaur movie when Daphne tells the gang her uncle invested in the La Serena Spa. Which, watching the movie, I would totally let the dude hypnotize me to be confident like Shaggy. That was great when he just told Fred, "I'm saving your butt, Jones." I love that. Now, I keep messing with the family tree, I'm sorry. Uncle Werner. Now, he's actually a wild card. Uncle Werner here is a freaking nuclear scientist, which, first off, I don't even think one of Velma's relatives were. Yeah, they were all science-based professionals, but a nuclear scientist. He is not so good with the concept of security, though, and showed a visiting relative all of his plans. So we do get to see him in Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Comics, I Spy. Now, last up is Saul Slotnick. There's not much about him, but I will mention he looks like a butler, kind of like a young Alfred Pennyworth from the Batman animated series. He is a jeweler and the maternal uncle of Daphne, and Daphne even mentioned that her mother was Jewish, and Saul's last name might be on of Mrs. Blake's potential maiden names, because of course we don't get really anybody else's. So let's get into the cousins of Daphne. So first up, Anna Blake. Anna is the cousin of Daphne, and we meet her in the Scooby-Doo First Frights and Spooky Swamp. She's a student, but also a chalet manager or chalet manager, however you say the snow banner places. I don't know. I've never been snowboarding. I want to, but I'm afraid I'll just fly right into a tree. Actually, that might be fun. And she's also in the theater club at school. Now, next up is Dash Blake. Dash Blake is a very young, smart man and invents a lot of useful things. He cares about his cousin in the Scooby Gang when they are attacked by the Phantom Eagle in the Scooby-Doo Enraging River Adventure. I want to make a theory here that he might be the son of Aunt Esther. That's why there's a green line. We do not know for certain, but I want to throw that theory out there, so that's my mistake. I should have put red instead of green. Next up is Shannon Blake. Shannon here lives in the Blake family castle on the shores of Loch Ness. She actually revealed to the gang and the watcher of the movie that the Blake family has had a long history of being danger prone, which Daphne, of course, looks to the gang, and everybody just kind of plays it off like, oh, no, definitely not. Next up, cousin Jennifer. Jen is a Valley Girl, 100%. She wears very bright colors and a heavy user of the Valley Girl slang. We meet her in the new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show. The creature came from the chem lab, and she believes her cousin is a world-famous reporter and is just a student at the time we see her. There's really not much on her. Next up is Danica LeBlake. Danica is a former French model and Guy Lavorton, I think that guy's last name is, and Guy's girlfriend, or Guy's girlfriend. She looks almost identical to her American cousin, except she has black hair, which in the episode we first see her in, it is heavily used in the plot, which is What's New Scooby-Doo Ready to Scare. Last up is Johnny Zoom. Johnny is a race car driver, and I kind of wonder if his last name is Zoom, or did he have it changed to Zoom, because if the latter, then his parents must be psychics. And we meet him in Scooby-Doo Wraith Car Driver, and I want to make a theory that he is the son of Uncle Dan and Aunt Europa. But like I said, that's just my own 2 cents about, maybe it's a theory about that. Now, the close family we have is, of course, Mom and Dad. I keep doing that. I'm sorry for moving the family tree up and down. I think my cursor's on the script, but it's not. Mom, her name is Elizabeth Blake. Okay, now her character has had a drastic change in the Pup Named Scooby-Doo series. First off, she was blonde with white pearls and wearing camo green for some reason, but later they changed her to look more akin to Daphne. Her personality was more focused on looks and strong disbelief in monsters, sorry. But later on, when Daphne grew up, she seemed to become more down to earth, and we see her and her husband Nedley in Pup Named Scooby-Doo and the new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show. Now next up is the dad, of course, Nedley Blake. Now we see him a multitude of times. He is a multi-millionaire, and it states that he gained a vast amount of his fortune from selling Blake's bubble bath. But Daphne, during a Pup Named Scooby-Doo, has also stated that he made his first $1 million when he was 8 years old. So that's like way younger than me, and I feel so bad because I haven't done that. His appearance changes constantly during the whole franchise, but his name also changes a lot. In some books, he's named Jonathan, and in a pup named, he's named Nedley. And in the Scooby-Doo behind the scenes, his name is George R. Blake. So whatever you feel like his name is, I'd say pick it, but I'm going with Nedley because it's unique enough to fit with the rest of the family. So next up and kind of last up is her siblings. So she has 5 siblings in what Mystery Incorporated, and gonna say they're still the siblings. I know we haven't seen her say she has siblings in anything else, but I want to consider it canonical. So first up is Astro Blake. So we do not officially know this sister's name, but I want to throw a theory about it, and maybe that being Damaris. It is unique enough like the rest of the family, plus it kind of feels space themed since she is an astronaut with her astronaut husband, as we see in their wedding in Mystery Inc. Though what is interesting is that we do not know if after the reset, if she also felt the effects and lost everything. Also, I think she is the older sister, like the eldest, since Daphne is the youngest, and then you have the quadruplets, or the middle, quote unquote, middle children. So actually, talking about the middle children, let's get into them. First up is Daisy Blake. Now, Daisy was a doctor pre-reset. It was very pompous and snooty, comparing her rich fiance to Fred. After the time reset, she is labeled as an underachiever to Daphne. And now next up is Dawn Blake. Now, Dawn was a fashion model pre-reset. Apparently, she tried to train chickens to spell her name but failed. However, Daphne thought it could be easily done with corn and chicken wire. Now, after the reset, she was more shy but kept her hairstyle, which I guess is nice because at least the writers gave her something. Next up is Delilah Blake, and Delilah is a Marine officer. It also says that she's Navy, but on the website, the Scoobypedia, it doesn't, you know, they argue about both, so it's either or. I'm gonna say she's a Marine. She acts like it. Pre-reset, all the quadruplets graduated Darrow University by the time they're all 13. She seems to be really militaristic, but she still cowers in fear during the Red Wizard attack on the Blake Mansion, of course. During the reset, she lost it and also became an underachiever and never joined the military. Final one we get to meet is Dorothy Blake. Dorothy was a race car driver. She, like all the rest of her siblings, had been engaged at least once. After the reset, she also lost everything, but went more docile, and she kept the green neckerchief, or neckerchief, the ascot looking thing. That is all for this week's family tree video. I will be doing Shaggy next week, so make sure to like the video. Comment about what do you think about Daphne's quadruplet sisters. Do they deserve to be labeled underachievers and after the reset? And do you think the writers kind of stuck a dagger in them for whatever reason? And also subscribe to the channel, and also click that little bell notification. That way you always get notified when I post. And also share this video out so that way we grow the community even a little bit bigger every single day. So I'll catch y'all later. Peace.